Welcome to Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. To all new hams, this is Kilo Fox 0, Colorado Boy.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Gerry Roop. And about a year or maybe 16 months ago, I started fooling around with WSJT-X. That's a digital protocol that has become popular, particularly in the low swing of our sunspot cycle. So I've done, using 30 watts, I've done 49 states and about 17 countries with it, with a really crummy antenna at home because I live in a HOA, so I had to put up a stealth vertical. So all the software today is free that you can download and off the websites. And if anybody is interested, I can give you, if you'll give me an email address, then I can email you a list of links to pull this stuff in. Some of it's listed in the slideshow that I'm going to do, but
pass around a paper and everybody put their email on it at once.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you'd do that for me, that'd be super. I am not an expert with this. It's a really complicated program if you get into all the nuances of it, but I have figured out how to use it a little bit, and so if you got questions, just stop me and I'll answer them if I can. If not, then maybe I can refer you to some place where you'll be able to get the answer. There have been now 4 articles on this in QST. October, November, January, and then I got my February issue yesterday, and there was yet another issue. In that issue, another article about it. So, I've got a station here. I'm running 30 watts. I've got an antenna set up outside for 30 meters, and we'll try to actually make some contacts with it, assuming the propagation gods are looking favorably on us. I'm sorry? It tells you. It's set. It's 10.1 something megahertz.
10.136, if I remember.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. So that's who I am, and here's the intro. So there are 9 separate protocols inside WSJT-X. Initially, Joe Taylor developed this for moonbounce. He was into moonbounce, and so he developed some protocols that have error correction, and it grew and began to be adopted for HF, and so it's really quite effective. These digital modes, the new ones, can be decoded even if you can't hear them, even if you've got good hearing and you can't hear them. So that's what enables it to be effective in our down sunspot cycle. Here's some relative performances that I think are correct. So we've got JT65 up here at the top, and the JT stands for Joe Taylor, and it's probably the best one out there. And that's compared to CW. So Joe Taylor lives on the East Coast. He's he was a professor at Princeton, an astronomer, and along the way he got a Nobel Prize in physics. I have never talked to him or even seen him in person, but apparently he's a nice guy. So you've got the HF modes associated with this weak signal JT-X suite. You've got JT65, which is the best as far as digging something out of the noise, but it's very slow. It's 1 minute each direction, and if you've got, so it ping-pongs back and forth, it takes like 5 or 6 minutes to make a contact. So it's slow. JT9 is similar. It's narrower. The bandwidth of a JT9 signal is quite narrow, but it's not quite as good if you've got pileups associated with the activity you're trying to work with. It's also the same slow. I could click one of these. I think it would make some noise. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's rather unpleasant. So you probably just want to keep your volume way down. Yeah, that was coming out of the, I'm not going to do any more out of the radio though, yeah. Okay, so last summer they released a beta version of a protocol they're calling FT8. That stands for a guy's last name Frank and then Taylor, and it uses 8 different tones, and they speeded it up. So it's got almost as good a performance. It'll go down to minus 26 dB, but it's 4 times faster. So that's what I'm going to try to demonstrate today. It appears that people who are using these digital modes have abandoned JT65 and JT9, and everybody's jumped on the FT8 bandwagon, and there's a lot of activity there. So, like I mentioned, it's a protocol, multi-tone frequency, shift keying, 8 tones. They're spaced at 6.25 hertz, so you've got a 50 hertz bandwidth. And they do all that at in 12.64 seconds. Well, they turn around at 15, so you've got a little over 2 seconds before the signal reverses and comes back the other direction. So it's really fast, and it's difficult to select. I'll demonstrate this, but it's difficult to select a particular CQ that you see out there and try to respond to it. So anyway, it's got auto sequencing built in. So once you get started on an exchange, the computer does it for you. You can just sit back and watch.
Excuse me, Jerry?
Yes.
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
Some digital protocols require that your computers be set to network time.
Oh, yeah.
Is
You
that
bet.
true for FT8 as well?
It absolutely is. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, like I was saying, it'll decode signals below the noise level. And so the signal strength reporting is based on dB above or below the noise level that your rig is experiencing. And your S meter doesn't do you any good with this. In general, WSJT-X is slow. It's either 5 minutes or 1 1/4 minutes. which seems faster, but it's still, for the amount of information that's transferred back and forth, it's still pretty slow. But like I said, I run this ICOM at 30 watts. It goes into one of those multi-match vertical antennas that's got this big power-hungry transformer that takes up most of it. And I still, I've worked Europe and South America and Japan and Australia. So, as you were saying, time synchronization, it needs to be within 1 second. And there's several ways to do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. You've got a 13-character limit for free text. So mostly free text is not used. These are canned responses. You ping pong back and forth, get the guy's call sign and his location, and you're done. So my wife, when I was trying to explain this to her, one of many times that I've tried to explain things to an English major, she said, well, that's like collecting stamps, because there's really no, there's no rag chewing. You don't talk to the person on the other end. You don't hear their voice. It's just machine to machine, really. But from that standpoint, you can certainly get an idea of the propagation, and it's fun, I think. I don't think I would want to do this exclusively, but right now it may be the only game in town, really. So that's what the program looks like, just kind of an example there. We've got a waterfall up here. Those are FT8 signals, and each line rolls down every 15 seconds. You can see some of the strong signals, and so there are quite a few of them out there on this particular example. And then the program decodes these 12-point-something second broadcasts and spits them out, and if it's a CQ, then they highlight it, and then as you communicate back and forth, then the received frequencies are displayed over here. And there's actually a little more that has been covered up in this, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So you need a radio that you can control with a computer. And this setup, I'm simply using a USB cable, because this ICOM 7200 has a sound card built in. So if you've got a lot of radios do that now. Kenwood does. If you've got an older radio, then you're going to need an interface box, and you can either buy those or build them. Question? Nope. Okay. Software. Oh, you need to download WSJT-X. And install it on your computer, and they have a very complete 70, 80-page user manual that's available, and they go into lots of detail. So if you need an interface, if you need an interface box, then there's several out on the market if you don't want to build one. But you can use a sound card in your computer and use the push-to-talk mechanism and make the thing work. You need accurate time, and you also need a grid square location. And the Maidenhead grid location of your house, or wherever you happen to be, can be pulled in with that website. And then the Meinberg time, what's the right word for it? I don't know, I think every 15 minutes it updates your clock and on your computer. And that's those are both free, of course. There's also one called Dimension 4 that a lot of people use. It's also freeware. Okay, you can add JT Alert. It's a companion software that will quickly show you the state or the country that you're, that's coming in over the air. You've got actually two screens with WSJT-X. You've got this thing here that shows the traffic, all the traffic coming in, and then the traffic on your receive frequency. And then you've got the canned messages that are stepped through every minute or every 15 seconds. And then you've got audio levels and the band you're on and the transmit and receive frequencies. And when I say frequency, I mean there's a block that is allocated for FT8, and it's an audio range, and you can select different frequencies that come in, but everything's received together. It's not like you tune to a particular FT8 signal. You get them all, and the same with JT65 or JT9. That's JT Alert, and you can see on this particular example, you've got Germany, Canada, Poland, China. That's almost too good to believe, isn't it? Netherlands, Sweden, and Lithuania.
Is this your capture from here?
No. I wish it were.
It would not be mine either. It looks good.
This individual has a better antenna than I have.
On the East Coast.
Yeah, it must be on the East Coast, yeah. But anyway, when you get something like this, if you haven't worked them before, they light up into different colors, and you can click on those little squares like they are, or the rectangles like they are buttons, and then that will initiate a response back to that particular station. And so people squeeze that down and they fill their entire screen so it looks like this. So you've got the waterfall, you've got JT Alert, and then you've got the primary display there. Okay, because FT8 only gives you a couple of seconds to decide if you want to respond to somebody or not, you've got to have pretty good hand-eye coordination. And you've got to really pay attention. And here's my analogy. That's, you'll appreciate that when we get into the demo here. So I use Logbook of the World, which is offered through ARRL, and when you get through with a contact, a little window pops up, and it logs the information except for their city and state or country and their name. And so I look that up and paste that in and save it, and then I've got a record of everybody I've communicated with. They're thinking that de-expeditions are going to start using this. Not sure yet how effective that'll be. The program allows you to initiate a CQ on an even or an odd minute boundary, but that's ignored on HF. It's just, you can look on the waterfall, decide if you can see a clear slot, and then pull the trigger and send out your CQ. let's see. I borrowed most of these slides from some guys who had put all this together, and this particular individual was concerned about, do you send a 73, can you omit it, and different nuances of the ping pong contact that occurs. And if you do this and you get on, you can kind of watch a QSO unfold and get an idea of what people are doing.
Do you find it disturbing that your machine is sending a 73 to their machine and there's nobody in the loop?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, yeah, basically. It's,
Who is wishing best wishes to whom?
Right.
Or to what?
right, yeah,
They could read it.
yeah, yeah. So it's good to watch and see what's going on, who's out there, and if you see a DX station you want to go after, you can call. Remember, you can scroll backwards and click on a station even after he's finished his QSO and a couple of minutes have elapsed. You can scroll backwards and start, and the program will pick all that up. Let's talk about, there's a reflector site on Yahoo for WSJT-X, and it gets lots of activity. And recently there's been a lot of activity dealing with what they call, simplex or not, and or split. So it's a little difficult to see, but there is a red and a green symbol up there in that circle, and it's basically, the red is an upside down U and the green is a right side up U, and the red is your transmit frequency and the green is your receive frequency. So if you see somebody sending a CQ and you simply double click that on the left side of your screen there, it'll move transmit and receive frequency together. But the latest version of this has a way to lock your transmit frequency. So if you can find an empty channel up here, like maybe up there, you can do a shift click, and you just click right up there, and it moves the red symbol over there and freezes it. And that way you're not transmitting, theoretically, on top of anybody else. So this is the normal simplex approach, and you can see here that the transmit and the receive frequencies are the same. Or you can split it, and he's got the red is, he thought that was pretty clear, and then the CQ was there, so when he double clicked on the CQ, he moved the receive over there, so here you've got differences. Now the miraculous thing about WSJT-X is that you can have overlapping signals and the program still decodes them all. So it's pretty amazing in that respect.
And with these frequencies, we're talking about the audio encoding, not the...
That's right. That's right. So you've got, well, you can see up here, we've got 0 through about 3 kilohertz. Well, that's an audio chunk, basically. And you can cram in dozens, if not 100, different signals all inside that. So these are the folks who helped me out for this display, or this PowerPoint. And so if there are any errors, you can contact them. So this JTX, WSJT-X, is really popular, not just in the United States, but Europe and Australia, New Zealand, Japan. So it takes a little fiddling to make it work, but particularly if you've got a rig that will have a built-in sound card, then it's not going to cost you anything because everything's downloadable, and you can give it a try. Okay. Questions, anybody? I know I kind of blitzed through that. The 4 articles that now have been in QST, if you're interested at all and you want to actually learn about this stuff, I would encourage you to read those articles. Yes, sir?
When you're operating in split frequency mode, how does the other station know what frequency to transmit on?
Well, good question. His receiver will decode the entire audio spectrum also, and WSJT-X program will see that his call sign is mentioned in one of these digital stream packets kind of things, and it highlights it in bright red.
So it shows up on the contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there dedicated RF frequencies on each band for this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there are. And you can change that, but you can go into the setup and move it if you want, but I found no need to do that. Yeah, no need to do that.
It's shown your carrier's on A frequency and everybody just piles up inside of there, right?
Yep.
That's right. But the signals that they're sending, the audio pieces are very narrow. And so it's not like everybody's, you can't have 50 single sideband stations on one frequency, but you could have 50 of these.
So you say 30 watts is a good number. You could obviously do this with 5 or even go lower just because you want to.
If you had a decent antenna, I started out with 10, and I had some success, but not as much as I thought I could use. But I've got a vertical antenna that's right next to a big blue spruce that's even taller, and the blue spruce is directly northeast and about 8 feet away, and that probably explains why I still haven't gotten Nebraska. Because it's blocking Nebraska.
There's another reason you're not getting.
I know, it's
Nobody has computers in Nebraska. I think I figured that out.
yeah. Yeah.
I lived in Nebraska and had a computer, but not too many.
But it was analog.
Called an abacus.
Okay, if you think of a question while I'm getting this demo set up, just shout it out. Okay, here, let's hope this works. Okay, it heard me. Okay. Okay, so that's an 8 and a 9 talking to each other. And there's a Canadian station talking to somebody in the 0 region. Well, this is not terribly promising. I'm going to look on 40 meters and see if there's more activity. But the antenna is tuned to 30. Well, nothing there. Wonder if 20's got any activity. Ah. Okay, so that's a CQ from W4. And yeah, see, that's, and there's another one. So I'm going to see if my little tuner here will tune to 20 meters. Keep your fingers crossed. It did. Okay, so let's look at the waterfall here a second. So I don't have this set up properly. It should extend a little further. There's a little more of it. Of course, every time I touch this thing, it erases the signals. These are 15 seconds. Yeah, this is FT8. And yeah, we're getting some activity here. So I'm going to move my transmit frequency. Where would you like? Maybe down about here. Okay. So now here's the whack-a-mole thing that comes up. So we're transmitting.
Red light shows transmit.
Yeah.
The green says not.
So we'll see if he comes back to us.
Did you call him directly, or did you just call a CQ?
No, I clicked on his CQ. No. So this thing is in automatic mode, so he sent another CQ, so this thing automatically responded. And it'll do that for a while or until you're tired of it, and then you can click this Enable TX to stop that process.
So it's automatically doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you click on iOS call sign, when you transmit, it now is waiting, and now it's receiving for him, waiting for him to call you back.
Right, and he didn't. He didn't, so I'm going to assume that he can't hear us. So I'm going to, well,
Only if he responds.
there's Hawaii.
They got SNRs on the other end, why wouldn't you know?
Well, he knows, but you don't know that he knows.
Oh, the look at the self theory.
So I'll be flabbergasted if we get Hawaii out here.
It would be cool.
Or Nebraska.
Yeah.
Screen capture that.
No,
He met somebody else.
yeah, he did. Well, actually, we're transmitting, so it,
No,
yeah, he did, yeah.
yeah.
So let's see if we can't get somebody here.
Put Wyoming in there and then might come back.
It took me a while to get Wyoming. I'm sorry?
Maybe on 2 meter, 160.
Yeah, just change your grid square to India and everybody will come back to it.
Yeah, right. Put this in perspective.
It's not showing up on the screen, but this guy here is in Spain. But I answered an AA1SU guy. No. He did, didn't he?
Oh, no, that's somebody else coming in.
Yeah.
By the way, when you click on enable, it keeps transmitting the rest of the.
Well, you can do Halt TX.
Halt, stop it immediately.
That's right. Yeah. So I was hoping to at least make one contact here. Yeah.
And then the green bar at the bottom, is that the sequence of your transmission down through the different messages?
Well, this bar, that's the time, just the 15 seconds. For,
So we're still off
tell you what, let's do. I can go through some of the setup windows here that you might find interesting if you're going to do this at home. Under settings, you've got the general tab where I put in my call sign, my grid location, DN70LM. I put a blank line between decoding periods, and that's what this dash line is here. And then it will show, based on the file that it accumulates, if it's a DXCC entity or not. And then down here under behavior, you've got these that I check. Disable the transmission after 73. Double click on call sets transmit enable, and the monitor returns to the last used frequency. So then under the radio, they've got this giant list of radios that you can select from. Or if you're controlling your radio with a ham radio deluxe, then you can select that. That's actually one of the entries there. For this old radio, I've got 19.2 baud rate, 8 bits, 1 stop, no handshake, and I use cat control, USB cable, and the split operation, which is different than the split operation we talked about a minute ago. They shift the frequency of the transmission slightly to center the audio better so that to minimize the chance of harmonics. And I would encourage you to read about that. It's not immediately obvious what they're doing, but a lot of rigs have that capability where you can split it back and forth. Yeah. The audio, I had to download into my laptop here a driver for the Silicon Labs chip that is in this radio. And I also have a Kenwood radio at home, and it turns out it's the same Silicon Labs part, and so that may be pretty common. But if you're going to use USB to talk to your radio, you're going to need a driver in your computer, and so you'll have to research and find out what that is. So, and then when you install it, it becomes a COM port, and you have to select that here. Let's see, TX macros, you can do a bunch of custom macros. I've never used that. I do have it prompt me to log the QSO and enable to PSK Reporter. Are you guys familiar with PSK Reporter? You know what that is?
What does that check mark get for?
It allows your laptop to participate in this worldwide monitoring of digital signals.
So you're sending out what you hear.
That's right. In this,
Now it monitors it. Okay.
yeah, in this, and then you can go to PS Reporter, and you can see people who have heard you.
That I can do already.
Yeah.
without that click. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because someone else is listening.
Right. And so that's really, if you're not sure you're getting out, then you go to PSK Reporter and you can see that, you know, East Coast is hearing you, but the West Coast isn't, and oh, there's somebody in Spain that heard me, or somebody. I actually saw somebody in Nebraska that heard me once, but I could never, I could never make the connection. Yeah. Somebody mentioned frequencies, and so we've got all these frequencies that you can adjust, but I would encourage you to not do that until you're real familiar with how all this fits together. You can customize the colors. I haven't bothered to do that either, so, but that's available if you want to do it. And let's see here. Here's some JT65 decoding parameters and miscellaneous stuff. I'm not sure what that is. So
JT, this program, the shell for all of Joe Taylor's flavor of the month coding schemes that he puts out?
WSJT-X it's one program, and it does all 9.
Yeah,
So
there's
you
some
get
modes.
updates as the new flavor comes up next month. They'll
That's right.
publish it, and then you can update it.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. We're at version 1.8.0, and it's the one that has the released version of JT8.
FTA.
FT8, yeah. Mhm. So, we've run over a little bit. I'm going to sit here and try to make a contact on 20 meters. Yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Where's your JT alert?
You don't have the tree in front of your antenna. Go back to 30, you might be able to do it.
Let's see if I don't have JT Alert fine-tuned on this laptop. This is not. I've got an old desktop at home that I've used for the last year and a half, and so it wants to be set up.
So some people are transmitting off time. We can see this time deltas of like two minutes from time, 2 seconds from time to time.
Yeah.
On Linux, I could adjust my clock temporarily to accommodate that.
Yes.
So they now can hear me, whereas no one else could.
Yeah.
And is that possible on Windows to fine tune it temporarily?
I'm glad you brought that up. Can you see this thing here called time fudge?
So there's a solution, all right.
There is a solution.
We have this problem with places that are distant, Guatemala.
Oh, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And their clocks are not always
Right.
exactly on.
So
So time fudge is what, a program you found or what?
one of the guys on this reflector site on Yahoo, on WSJT-X reflector site, created it and made it available, and I'll be happy to send it if you guys want it. It's not very big.
Neat, okay. Now I know what to look for.
Yeah, you have to run it as an administrator, and if you, you can run, this is available on Linux and Mac. I've got it on a Mac at home also, and Windows. People put it on Raspberry Pis and have run it that way.
The real downside is I don't think there's a JT alert for those other platforms. The JT alert is fun.
You're right.
Alert J.
Is there a Linux one?
Yeah, I'm running.
Oh, okay.
Which is a French guy's version of it.
Oh.
And I can hit through a bunch of, take a little.
I'm sorry?
He needs to build time fudge into the program here so that it knows, your platform knows if it doesn't have a good time sync.
Well, that was,
Use the average time of the
yeah,
signals.
that was discussed, and the developers, sustainers of WSJT-X didn't want to do that, and so this guy wrote time fudge,
Yeah.
and it works. I mean, if you look,
Solution is to just keep your time right.
right, and I don't have internet here, so that's why
Your clock may be drifting.
I'm off a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday I had this radio on, and of course it adjusted, but that was yesterday. Yeah. So,
Half a second is sent for the capital one station.
yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Nothing there. We'll wait another cycle. See, the problem is this guy called CQDX. Well, if you've got 2 seconds to pick one of these, get your mouse position and double click it, you can't read it. And a lot of times I'll respond to somebody who has CQDX or CQ Montana or Idaho or something, and you know, by then it's too late.
Yeah, you think they could build that into it as well? You know, if it's DX, if you're not DX, don't answer.
Right, yeah. So here's a W8 guy that I think I responded to, but no, it didn't hear me. Well, I'm sorry we haven't made a contact.
Try 17.
I was fooling around and I said, well, you know, I've never listened to 6 meters, so I dialed up, this old rig here will go to 6 meters, so I dialed it up, and all of a sudden I saw some traffic. And so I double clicked it and I talked to a guy in North Carolina.
You should try meteor scatter.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fun.
That's really the one and only time I've had a 6 meter
What time of
contact.
day?
It's the middle of the day,
Yeah.
yeah.
6
Also at
meters
night?
can be fun,
Or not?
Well, I haven't tried it at night, but
mostly during the day.
yeah, it was,
But, yeah.
I guess it was a fluke,
Yeah.
but anyway.
No, we've had some showers lately.
Mhm.
FT8's a little harder. Meteor scatter, you can do it in the morning.
Yeah. Well, okay, here. Here, let's get rid of that. Now, that's that same W8 station. I don't think he's going to hear me.
And that could be just dependent upon timing.
Yeah.
+8.
So there he is, and there's my transmitter.
And some of the guys, if they lock their transmit and receive, they can't answer you if they're split.
Ah. Yeah. Well,
Wait for that T928 to finish his call. He's got booming in real strong.
Tailgater.
this guy right there. Yeah. Well, guess it's not to be, guys. I'm sorry. But, yeah, if you want some information, I will. You bet.